Hey, Weston, we're going to go to you right away, okay? So good morning, everyone. This is the monthly Salt Lake Community Network meeting. Noticed on Twitter last night that the Downtown Community Council had an in-person meeting for the first time in 2 years. So awesome. In Sugar House, we hope to go back maybe in June. We're going to meet at the library next week to start talking about that. So it's about time. Just going over the agenda, Weston's just going to touch on the 45-day period that we talked about last meeting. Then we'll hear from Susan Lundmark and her team. Then we'll have the Salt Lake Equity team. And then Judy Short just wanted a few minutes at the end to talk about something. So we'll start. Go ahead, Weston. Weston, are you there? Susan, we'll have you go first. You want to introduce your team, and then we'll have Weston. When he comes back on, we'll have him go after you.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, yeah, good morning, everyone. It is nice to see those of you who I've met before, and also nice to meet those of you who I haven't. My name is Susan Lundmark. I am with the Transportation Division in the Department of Communities and Neighborhoods. And I'm joined today by my fearless co-leader, Angela Price, who is the Policy Director for Communities and Neighborhoods, as well as members of our consultant team from Baird & Driscoll Community Planning and from the Urban Displacement Project out of Berkeley. So I'm gonna have them introduce themselves in just a second. But I just wanted to briefly introduce that our team is here today to talk about the Thriving in Place project, which is Salt Lake City's anti-displacement strategy that looks at gentrification and displacement pressures in the city and has an ultimate goal of finding recommendations to help our residents choose to stay in the city if they want to, even as the city grows and changes. And we've always, from the beginning, had a strong desire for this to be a community-driven project. So that's one of the reasons that we're here today, to talk with all of you about your communities, your neighborhoods, the community councils, to introduce you to the project and give you a chance to ask questions of our consultant team so that you can bring information back to the residents in your neighborhoods, and also to help us understand how to reach people in your neighborhoods if they're not likely to take an online survey or participate in sort of a standard city planning process. So I think that's everything I plan to say just to kick us off, but let me introduce David Driscoll to introduce the consultant team. And thanks again for having us.
Thanks, Suze. Great to see everybody this morning, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Sorry, I don't have my green on, maybe later. We have started into this process of working to understand gentrification and displacement pressures in Salt Lake, documenting those, hearing people's experiences and their perspectives on it. In particular, I'll walk through some slides and sort of talk about the phases of work and schedule. Have met some of you through this process already, and happy to meet the rest of you. You play an important role in terms of being liaisons to the broader community and helping encourage people to engage, as well as bringing your own perspectives to it. I'm with Baird & Driscoll Community Planning. We're a small practice out of Berkeley, California. Work a lot on affordable housing and community planning and engagement. I'm joined by Daisy Quinones of our team today. You want to say hi, Daisy?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us.
And also Tim Thomas from the UC Berkeley Urban Displacement Project. Tim, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you.
So Tim's group, him and Julia Greenberg, they're doing this work nationally and looking at factors that drive displacement, mapping it, understanding it, and developing policy and programmatic responses to it. We're also on our team that couldn't join this morning because of teaching obligations. Folks at the University of Utah, Evis Garcia and Alessandro Rigolam. It's early, one cup of coffee so far. And they've been great partners, providing on the ground capacity and local understanding. They have students, we'll talk a little bit about, they have students out doing in-person interviews and going to different community events. And I think some of them may have come to some of your community council meetings and sort of talked briefly about the project there. I'm going to share screen and just sort of give you an overview. I know you have a busy agenda, so I'll do this quickly. So we've chosen the name Thriving in Place because that's what we're trying to get to in terms of the outcome, is provide the opportunity for people to stay and thrive in Salt Lake, even as it grows and changes. Certainly it's about countering displacement and the factors that drive displacement. But at the end of the day, what we want people is to be able to thrive, not just sort of stay, but be able to really have full and fulfilling lives here. If we go to the next slide. Oh, I'm the one controlling the slide, sorry. Last night I did a presentation where I had to say, advance the slide. Okay, so Thriving in Place is to understand gentrification, displacement, and come up with policy recommendations for the city. And the way we're approaching the sort of developing responses is to also look broadly at sort of the ecosystem of organizations and other agencies that affect displacement. Sort of how do we work together and have a shared vision of what we're trying to achieve, and clarity on who needs to do what in order to get there. And like I said, fostering a community where we can all stay and thrive. We're in phase 1, which is the listening and learning phase. We started with some interviews, some project launch interviews with folks from around the community, a couple of you on this call. We talked to folks who've experienced displacement, folks who work on these issues. And then we launched a website, and I'll share that and walk through that with you in a moment. And we're in mid-March, and we're aiming to wrap up phase 1 by the end of April. And I'll talk about some of the engagement stuff, and it would be great to have your help in getting the word out about. And then the next phase really starts up in May-ish, which is to start crafting, okay, we know this, and what are we going to do about it? I'll also note that in phase 1, Tim and his team are doing a lot of data analysis and mapping, and we'll have some maps to share in May as part of that sort of here's what we've learned so far, sort of conclusion of phase 1. And that's when things are really going to get interesting as we talk about, okay, if this is what's going on, if this is what we've learned, what are we up for in terms of doing things about it? I see that there's a chat. Is there anything I need to respond to? No, good. Thanks, Stacy, for putting that in. So I'm actually going to take us to the Thriving in Place website briefly. So this is the site that we launched. It is intended to sort of be a portal for people to learn about the project over the course of the project, to provide updates, help them understand what we're talking about when we talk about displacement, what are the factors. Our hope is to make this as easily accessible as possible in terms of the content, how it's presented, that you can go there and spend 5 minutes and get an understanding of the project and how you can get involved. Or if you want to, you can spend a couple hours and follow the different links and read more in depth about things. So I'm not going to go through everything. Most important is the link at the top, which if I click on it, it's going to say I already took the survey. But if you haven't taken the survey, I encourage you to go there, click on that link, and you can take a survey that we've put together in both English and in Spanish. The site itself can be also viewed in English, Spanish. You can go to this button down here on the bottom right and choose Spanish or English. There's also some accessibility features in the button that's on the bottom left. So just be aware of those. If you go to what is displacement, there's some helpful videos that are actually from our partners at the Displacement Project that you can click on and watch a short overview about explaining gentrification, understanding displacement, some understanding of sort of history of redlining in our country. It gives you understanding of the different types of displacement that we're talking about. And some of the drivers of displacement. So these are sort of high-level overviews. As we have the maps from the analysis of Salt Lake, we'll be putting these up on those up on the site as well. What we're hearing is where we will be capturing summaries of the different input that we're getting from the community. We already have up here the summary of the project launch interviews, if you want to go read those, that highlight some of the issues that were identified in those one-on-ones. There's some great story maps of different neighborhoods. If you haven't seen them already, I encourage you to go and check out your neighborhood. This is from the work of University of Utah students last fall. So it links to there. And then we have a community working group that has been helping to guide sort of the design of the engagement effort so far, and will be a sounding board for things as we start to develop some draft policy recommendations or options. We'll be talking with them. And then we also have a citywide team representing different departments across the city organization that we'll also be meeting with. You can see that list of departments if you go to the About page. Here's the project timeline, and here's the list of those departments and sort of a contact place. And then there's also an overview of our team members on the About page. But most importantly, right now, what we're really focusing on is getting people in. You all can help us get the word out about the initiative and encourage people to participate in the survey, to sign up for the newsletter, which will be a way in which we get out information about updates as they come out, and get people involved in the next phase, which will be on crafting collaborative solutions. Here you can, here's different things you can do right now. You can engage and get updates. You can do a deep dive on displacement, go into the Urban Displacement Project site. You can also sign up for text messages. So that's the Thriving in Place site. Maybe I'll pause briefly for questions there. Anything on the site? All good. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So these are the different things that are going on right now. The online survey is going to reach the largest number of people, but we're also doing a lot of in-person work to reach people who are not going to go to a website. It's just not how they get involved, or they may not know about it. So the University of Utah students have been out in the community. Well, they weren't out last week because it was spring break, but going to be out in force this coming week. They're actually expecting to get to about 700, 800 in-person, what we call intercept surveys, just being in front of a grocery store, talking to people on the street. They're actually filling out the same survey, but doing it in more of a one-on-one conversation. We also have 6 community liaisons that we've engaged. These are folks from different parts of the community to reach out to groups that may be harder to reach. They're doing some in-language engagement, more in a focus group type format, covering the same topics, but much sort of less formal, sort of more of a conversation with folks to understand their experience. So these are mostly focused on people who are experiencing displacement or have experienced displacement. And that's going to be a really valuable part of the community input. The students have also been going to different community events. They've come to some of your community council meetings just to give a quick overview of the project. So those things are all going on. April, we talked to City Council, gave an update on the effort. April 16th, there's a community event that we'll be at, and April 26th, the students will be presenting at probably a public library that's being nailed down. But they'll be presenting the summary of what their work was and what they heard. In May, we'll be sort of wrapping it all together and providing an overview of what we heard and what the themes were, and start pointing to some of the things we could do. And so that's the schedule coming up. We're in the thick of it now in terms of engagement work. And yeah, excited to hear additional thoughts you have about how to strengthen particularly the in-person engagement, and also have you help us get the word out about the online survey and website. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing screen.
David, do you want to just quickly update the group on the work that Evis is doing with Mestizo and the youth workshops?
Yeah, she sent some great photos last night. She was at, they're going to several different schools working with young people. They do this great sort of format, place it workshop, it's called, where you build you use loose parts and build a model and talk about sort of the community and some of your ideas about what's going on and what you'd like to see happen. And she's been capturing great quotes from young people and their thoughts about sort of what they'd like to see going on in their neighborhood, or things that are happening that they'd like to not see happen. So she was out at a school yesterday, and I know they have a few more coming up. We have a pretty long list of places that they're going, and I know today one of the things would be, if you have thoughts, we'll just cross-check and make sure they're either going there. If it's not, see if we can add it to the list. If there's specific groups or events that you think that would be great for us to be involved with.
Anybody have any questions? Nigel just put something in the chat. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Jan Hemming. I'm up here in Hillcrest. Was a little disappointed, not to be a downer on this, because I appreciate all that you're doing. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, grew up in Hayward, so I consider you a neighbor. But I saw the sort of basic work that was done. And I know it's not perfect, but I felt like we really, Yalecrest really did not get represented very accurately. So it's about accuracy. And the surveys that were done, they went down to our Miller Park and they grabbed a bunch of people who were walking their dogs, most of whom don't even live here. And they didn't really understand the boundaries. I wasn't expecting them to. And that's where if they had contacted us or were able to contact those who sort of are on the ground here and know the neighborhood and really have an understanding of who we are. I think there was kind of a disconnect there. No disrespect. We just want to see if we can make a connection. I don't know how important we are to the work that you're doing, but I just thought I'd add that to see if we could go back and do a redo on Yalecrest.
I think you're referencing the story maps from last fall's class, the University of Utah class. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Right. Okay.
The fact gathering that was going on and the representation of our neighborhood. I don't think that it was portrayed accurately or historically.
Yep. So one of the things is so that was a class that actually got started before our project got started. But we thought that the work they did was relevant and helpful. So that's why we decided to share it and sort of incorporate the site. And the beauty and the challenge of engaging students through courses is we don't control what they do. We structure it and we look at it and we learn from it, but it's not the only way in which we're doing engagement. So that's why we're doing sort of things ourselves in addition to what the students are doing. So I don't think we'll be able to go back and correct it. It was sort of a student project done for a grade, but we thought there was value in sharing it. And definitely if there's things there that you don't think are accurate or there's missing information, we would love to hear that. So you can either send that to me or I can put you in touch with Evis Garcia, those were her students who did that work, but they already got their grade and they've moved on. So I don't think we're gonna get them to go back and redo it.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Cindy.
So I've been trying to think about how to phrase this. I have tremendous confidence in the team that's been retained. But I don't see any movement in the decision makers regarding displacement who are at the city. So we're still upzoning, giving away huge value, millions of dollars in upzones and getting nothing back except market rate housing, which is the booby prize. We now have information that we'll have an 8% vacancy rate downtown in the market rate housing by 2024. That is not far away. And so I will be watching, and I'm going to urge all of my comrades in the community to watch very carefully in April, because if your presentations to the city council don't begin a turnaround in the decision makers, then your skills are not being taken full advantage of. So I've said something like this before in a meeting, but I don't see any change. We just wiped out 13 units of reasonably priced housing. I won't get into the whole affordable definition thing, but 13 units of affordable, less expensive, whatever you want to call it, it's not market rate, on Bueno Avenue. And there was not a blink. It was a unanimous decision to upzone. And the people started being displaced years ago, and anything the city thinks it's doing regarding displacement is far too late, because displacement begins when properties are amassed and management changes. So end of tantrum. I am going to be at every presentation you make to the city council and any decision makers in the city that's open to the public, because that's where change has to happen. I have tremendous confidence in you guys on the team. Rock stars.
Oh,
Thanks.
thanks, Cindy.
High praise for you guys. Nigel, go ahead.
All right. Thank you for this opportunity. I've got a couple of questions, actually. And the first one is going to be, in conducting this study, are you talking about rental units or for sale units?
Both.
And is there, if it's both, is there an emphasis on one or the other?
I'd say a stronger emphasis on rental, but we also know people are being displaced because they want to purchase something, but they can't find it. So they might be a renter currently, but they're looking to become a homeowner, and there's just no home ownership opportunities they can find. So they're being displaced for that reason. It's for an aspect of displacement, but we're definitely, like, renters are particularly susceptible to displacement pressures because they don't have that much control over the property they're living in.
Sure. So there's another log jam on the property ladder, and that is sellers, especially in my neighborhood on the west side in Poplar Grove and Glendale, where we've typically had the affordable home ownership units, and they've gone up so much in value that even if you can sell, which you can in today's market, you're not able to stay in the neighborhood. People who are selling are going to the suburbs or exurbs or even out of state. They're not staying within Salt Lake for the most part when they make a sale from these neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that you have to look at is asking prices. Like in these neighborhoods, you're not going to see very much less than 400,000. But when you look at the actual sold prices, many of those are going for multiples of tens of thousands over asking. And that complicates the matter on a couple of things. It's not just about financing, but it's about having the cash reserves that if the appraisal doesn't meet that, I mean, people are making wild terms along with their offers, waiving all kinds of contingencies just to get the home. Is that something that you're factoring in as well?
Yeah, no, well, right now we're in the sort of listening phase and understanding sort of the what these issues are and how they're playing out. The potential, I mean, nothing's off the table in terms of what we might recommend at this point.
Okay, and then my last point concerns renters who are being displaced. There are some, we'll call them less than scrupulous landlords who are going to be able to make more money by evicting someone or getting somebody to actually leave without doing substantial improvements to the property and being able to get close to market rate or even more than that. And I think that's where we're going to see some real unfairness going on. And I hope that that gets documented as well.
Oh, that's come up in some of the input already.
Go ahead, Jan, last question. You're muted.
Sorry. I just wanted to second what Cindy Cromer said. I've had a lot of discussions with the planning department and with Dan Dugan, our city councilman, about Bueno. I mean, Dan was very gracious to spend about 30 minutes on the phone with me because again, Cindy's kind of already outlined what the issues are there. I won't go over them again, but it's really the first time that the city of Salt Lake took that step. And so it's quite unique. I just want to call that to your attention, to the Berkeley group. And I think it's a step backwards. You know, Dan obviously, you know, feels differently, and he gave some very good rationales for why they voted in favor of it. But I think it's a case study that you folks in Berkeley might want to look at and understand the community passions and understand kind of the history. And I think it'll help guide you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to leave your contact info in the chat for us? So, and then we're happy to share any information you have. We'll send out the survey again to all of our community councils. Happy to help any way we can.
Hey,
Great,
Landon, do you mind if I chime in really quick?
Go ahead.
So good to see all of you guys this morning and see familiar faces. Just wanted to flag for you guys that Community and Neighborhoods will be doing a comprehensive housing policy briefing to the City Council on April 5th. Cindy, I'm looking at you. I know you'll be very interested in that, as I'm sure others of you will as well. And then just to also point out that on the 12th, the Thriving in Place presentation to the City Council will be fairly similar to what you're hearing here today. We've decided to bump back the public engagement process a few weeks because the City Council is actually going to be doing a citywide mailer on several different housing projects happening within the city. And we wanted to be able to leverage that mailer to be able to get additional responses from our residents on Thriving in Place. So the City Council presentation on the 12th will be kind of just an overview similar to this, knowing that we'll be coming back to them after budget season's done with more information on the community engagement process and what we've heard. And then I also just want to let you know that on the 12th, we'll be having a discussion on housing loss mitigation, which I know is of concern to a lot of you here as well. So just wanted to flag those things for you and really thank you guys so much for allowing us to have some time on your agenda this morning. We really appreciate it. It's really great to hear your feedback.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, can I chime in?
Sure.
Sorry, I've been sitting back listening. I'm filling in for Amy Hawkins today.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Thank you. And so agreeing and echoing what I've heard a lot of you talking about, neighbors selling and moving to Mill Creek. And
Hey, Dan, just so that everybody's aware, so he's from the ballpark area.
okay. And I wouldn't be doing my part here, filling in for Amy, if I didn't mention something that has been a reoccurring conversation here. And that is the destabilization of our neighborhood, where we're losing a lot of our long-term residents, like a significant amount of them, and our families, simply because they don't feel safe here anymore. And just thinking about it and listening to your conversation, I feel that ties in, and just wanted to bring that up and make sure that that's kind of one of the considerations.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. That's one of the things on the web page on what is displacement. So there's various forms of displacement, and that's what you described as one of them. I think a lot of people typically think of sort of direct displacement. Older building gets torn down because a new building's coming in, and that is a displacement issue as well. But there's a lot of displacement, or what Cindy pointed out is oftentimes displacement actually happens before redevelopment happens. People see change coming. There's, like you're talking about, sort of a sense of insecurity, and people make choices to leave. And sometimes people make choices to leave, like that's their prerogative to go somewhere. But if they're doing it for reasons that are more being pushed out rather than pulled out because they want to go somewhere else, that's an aspect of displacement we're looking at.
Right, and to specify, it is property crime and violent crime related, largely in ballpark.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks, Dan. All right, next we're going to hear from the Salt Lake City Equity Team. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, Landon.
Hi.
This is Moana. We're gonna introduce ourselves throughout our presentation, if that's all right.
Sure.
With our team here. Coletta regretfully wasn't able to join us this morning, but she wanted our team to come. The bulk of us were able to meet at this time, so we'll be standing in for her. And if you could give me screen sharing, I greatly appreciate that. Oh, there we go. Let's just. All right. So thanks again, Landon, and the rest of SLCN for allowing our team to come today and just introduce ourselves and what we've been doing in the last few months since we were basically assembled into a team for the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office. I'll share a little bit more about what we're doing. Coletta Lynch is the Chief Equity Officer, but my name is Juana and I'm the Equity Manager. See if this is working. So just to give you a bit of history and background, I think Coletta was brought on as the Chief Equity Officer in May of last year, 2021. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Weston, you're on here. I came in September, so that was preceding my position. And so what she was tasked with is creating this team, which is a team of 5. And trying to accomplish some of these larger goals, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, as you see here. Part of our mission is intentional equity every day. And that, as you know, was part of Mayor Mendenhall's charge in 2021 to 2022. Our specific mission statement is the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office of Equity Inclusion engages the city staff, elected officials, and the public to provide education, policy recommendations, and technical assistance related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our office provides toolkits, trainings, best practices, and support to encourage use of an equity lens for fair and just distribution of resources, access to services, and opportunities. And you'll see as you meet the rest of our team that we have specific areas of focus and in trying to achieve this mission. I think one of the biggest things is sharing with people. We've been emailing back and forth with some of you folks, and at the bottom, just defining what equity is versus equality and not mixing the two. So because our team is the Office of Equity Inclusion, our definition of equity in Salt Lake City is acknowledging and addressing historic current disparities experienced by our residents, employees, businesses, neighborhoods, and visitors, and to provide access to resources, opportunities that support everyone in overcoming barriers to their success so that our community today and generations tomorrow can thrive. And I'll just go quickly through this. These are some of our values. I don't want to read all of them, but of course, with access and fairness and transparency. And these are our goals for 2022. Some of them is just to issue guidance through the department leadership, and then launch the Equity Ambassador team to implement citywide equity. And working not just outside of Salt Lake City, but within Salt Lake City Corporation is the goals for our team. So as you can see, I would like to spend the bulk of the time just introducing you to our members. Coletta is the Chief Equity Officer. Katie also is with Coletta in that meeting. She is her executive assistant. And then our senior policy advisor on refugees and new Americans is Fatima Deary, who's worked here in the city for a very long time. I am the equity manager. And then we have the equity coordinator, which is Darby Egbert. And then our ADA coordinator, Ashley, language access coordinator, Roxana, and then our equity liaison, Ephraim, as well as our DEI intern for refugees and new Americans, Megan McLaws. So I also want to just note, I met a lot of you and worked with a lot of you in the past years. I just came back to the city to work for Mayor Mendenhall after about 3 years being at the university. But one of the biggest draws was having this team assembled and how I just thought what an opportunity it is to work within Salt Lake City and have such great people on this team working towards equity. So I know so many of you have worked with the city for years and we've never had an entire team dedicated to equity and diversity. So the energy that we bring in the last 8 months has been awesome as we've been doing major projects. So Coletta, of course, the Chief Equity Officer, she is overseeing all of the different diversity, equity, inclusion strategies that we are recommending to the mayor, and is the director and captain of the ship. And we're really grateful to her leadership. And she's the one that pretty much picked and vetted and worked with everybody who's on this team so that we could do the work that we do. And I'll give the time to Fatima to introduce herself and the work she does.
Awesome. Thank you, Moana. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having us here. My name is Fatima Diri. I am originally from Somalia. I came here as a refugee, graduated from the University of Utah with my master's degree, and I've been working in the community for as long as since I was 16. So with that being said, I went to West High School. So at the mayor's office, we have a program called the Know Your Neighbor volunteer program. It is established with a partnership with the State Refugee Services Office to help refugees integrate into our community. We match volunteers with refugee families in hopes of them becoming friends and overlooking some of the everyday needs, such as service oriented or just taking care of like a specific task. And then I also put initiatives such as New American programs that support citizenship, any advocacy efforts that communities need when things like the DACA students are attacked or the refugee ban happens, just similar things like that. I review policies and make recommendations on policy with within internal departments, as well as broader community members when serving communities of color, BIPOC communities. I'm also a liaison. I sit on several boards and commission. I'm a part of the Governor's Refugee Advisory Board. CWS stands for Church World Services. It's a national organization that is one of the resettlement agencies. So I sit on that board, as well as Refugee Congress. It is a national group made up of refugee leaders who are graduate and are trying to give back to the community that welcomed them. We recently became awarded as a welcoming network, and we joined as a member. We're working towards becoming certified, having Salt Lake City become a certified welcoming city. Salt Lake County is already a welcoming city, and we're working towards getting that certification and making Salt Lake a more welcoming place. And then as far as like outreach and conducting community events such as celebrating African Festival, World Refugee Day Leader, Luncheon, World Refugee Day Festival, Immigrant Heritage Month. I can go on and on. As you guys know, we have a very well-diverse community made up, especially in the Salt Lake City. And so just working to make Salt Lake more reflective in the different departments of the community that it serves. And with that, I'll turn it over to my next colleague, which I don't know who it is. Okay, Moana, back at you.
Thank you, Fatima, for all the robust work that you do within New Americans and refugees. As the equity manager, I'm specifically tasked with managing the Racial Equity and Policing Commission, as well as the Human Rights Commission. And so coordinating with all the different departments, especially SLC PD, in order to bring the concerns from these two commissions to them and see out the work that they're doing. I wanted to also make a plug if anybody here or in their communities can share out this. We have a couple of vacancies. It says 3, there's some in motion, so they should be getting confirmed in the next couple of weeks or appointed. And so there are a couple of vacancies on the Racial Equity and Policing Commission, as well as the Human Rights Commission. And if you all, I know this network meets with folks all over the city, we're looking to fill those as well and to reach out if you have any specific questions at the end about the work that we're doing for the Racial Equity and Policing Commission, we're currently in finishing up phase 1 recommendations that were brought in to the SLCPD and the mayor and city council in 2021, which includes things like revising policy, as well as bringing in revising policy and incorporating BIPOC communities in trainings for police and understanding the history. And if you have specific questions about that, I can take them now or even later on, just to let you know that I am the manager of those commissions and you can reach out to me anytime within the city. So for more information about both, here's the, if you want to share out the, we'll send our presentation to you all, and just come visit our website for more information. All right, Darby.
Thanks, Moana. It is so good to see some familiar faces. I am not sure that I know some of the newer community council chairs, but I know Landon and I worked closely, Dorothy Owens, Ellen and I was previously FIRE's recruitment and outreach coordinator for several years. I left the city for about a year to go to the private sector and was like, this is crushing my soul. So I came back to the public sector to be able to work under Coletta's leadership and Mayor Mendenhall. So happy to be back. Salt Lake City native, went to East High, but I still love Moana and Fatima. We're still friends. I have my master's in public administration and my bachelor's is in speech communication. Anyway, in my role as equity coordinator for special projects, I manage the GARE Ambassador Program. GARE stands for the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. It's a national network with 36 participating states and over 400 members. The goal behind that is to ultimately connect with these members and learn from their successes and failures with implementing DEI citywide initiatives and programs like the Ambassador Program, which essentially has, each department has an ambassador that they have designated to help with their equity lens focus with all of their practices, including recruitment, hiring, retention, policy, et cetera. I work with Coletta as well to implement, those programs within each of the departments. I help coordinate and draft our DEI specific mayoral proclamations. And in some cases, we do joint resolutions with City Council. Ephraim actually helps with that as well, and he'll speak to that a little bit later. I do help to maintain a DEI calendar of observances and milestones, as well as work on the newsletter. So I hope you have been getting that in the community partner updates. And then I manage essentially the social media and the website for the team. So yeah, if you aren't getting the community partner updates, please reach out. I'll put my email address in there. We like to share as many updates as we can that we get, not just from our team, but from the city internally. I believe we had the opportunity to share the Thriving in Place survey, which was great. And of course, if you feel overwhelmed or bombarded by those communications, just let us know as well. And we're happy to take you off that distribution list, but happy to be back. That's my role. And I'm gonna let, I believe Ashley is next. Thanks.
Can we switch slides? Yeah, perfect. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Ashley Lickley. I am the ADA coordinator. I have been with the mayor's office since November. I kind of do a little bit of everything in relation to disability. So the main thing is ensure city compliance with Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so a lot of that also looking internally, but looking externally to review, respond to, and resolve ADA complaints from the public. And those complaints could be anything from physical barriers to access, such as the public right-of-way, architectural access, or program services and activities that the city does, or events that happen on city property. Or it could also be communication barriers, and a lot of that is at this point digital. So a lot of website accessibility. I have helped with making sure that some of the surveys, such as the Thriving in Place survey, are screen reader accessible and accessible for folks just in general. I manage the newly created Accessibility and Disability Commission, and that's made up of external stakeholders who either have disabilities themselves, work with people with disabilities, or are community members who volunteer or are advocates in the disability community. And then I also manage an internal city department ADA liaison group. And so that's comprised of different departments around the city who each liaison is kind of the go-to person for each department on ADA issues. And then review and resolve web accessibility issues. We're really looking at making our SLC.gov website as robust and accessible as possible, looking at how we can improve all forms and just the viewability of our website, stuff like that. Review accessible event applications and provide any sort of advice on accessible events on city property that are happening. So that could be any of the festivals or smaller events that happen around the city. And then I coordinate with city departments, community organizations, and public regarding accessibility and disability issues. So you can always reach me at ada@slcgov.com. Send me any comments, concerns, questions that you may have. I can always either route them to the appropriate liaison or answer them myself. And then lastly, identify and follow accessibility and disability trends to advise the mayor and city council on any emerging issues. And that's me. So I'll turn it over to Roxana.
Roxana, are you muted?
I was. I said such great things too. Missed it all. My name is Roxana Orellana, and I am the Language Access Coordinator. I've been with the city, or I should say with this office, for a couple months now. I was, prior to that, I was in the mayor's communications team. And prior to that, I was in the private sector. Background is journalism, and so moved here to work at the Salt Lake Tribune. And I left and went into education, and eventually I am now here. My job as my position is still in its infancy. As I said, I've only been here a couple months, but basically my role is to work on setting a language access program that will help the city navigate all the needs of language access services and people who have limited English proficiency. So if they come into the city, they can access any sort of service that anyone who is English speaker does. So we're working to provide any sort of service to our constituents who don't speak English as their primary language, have access to those services and programs and overall activities. Right now, we're in the first step of bringing up a community report. We had a language access task force who put together some information, and that report was finalized. And now we are moving with the joint resolution for the city council. And from that step on, once it's adopted, we'll move on to setting up a plan, an implementation plan of how every public facing department will handle and service those, again, constituents who have limited English proficiency. And as you can see, my description of my position, it relates to anything that has to do with language. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully y'all can hear me. My name is Ephraim Koum. I am the equity liaison. I've had the privilege of being a part of this team since September as well. Prior to that, I had the privilege of getting to be an intern. So it's been a big step up since then. But my role kind of sounds my role is kind of how it sounds. I get to liaise and help out with different team members, as well as different stakeholders and organizations outside of our office. But primarily my roles consist of helping draft proclamations, helping in managing our social media, as well as our website, as well as the newsletter. And then I do some research here and there on different things that kind of help the office and our team. So yeah, I get to do a little bit of everything, and I love it.
Thanks, Ephraim. Fatima, I think can explain what her intern does. Fatima?
Megan is my intern. She helps me support with the New Americans and the Know Your Neighbor volunteer program. And I'm actually happy that I get another opportunity to speak. Just as a plug-in, if anybody is interested in knowing more about the Know Your Neighbor volunteer program, we have on our website a tab about it and how you can sign up to become a volunteer or suggest a project or any idea that you have for New Americans to explore. It could be like a camping trip, a skiing activity, any kind of suggestions that you may have, please throw it out on our website. Thank you, and I'll put my contact info on the chat box.
Thanks, Fatima. And now if you'd like to follow us, we're on Facebook and Twitter, as well as reach out to us if any of you are not currently on our mailing list for our DEI newsletter. We love to share all the work that we're doing. Just a quick thing that we've done only within the last 8 months, as all these team members have been assembled and gathered here. We've been able, just a quick list of things, we were able to codify the Racial Equity and Policing Commission and have a 15-member commission. The Accessibility and Disability Commission was just passed last month, and that will now be an official commission in Salt Lake City. And what we have coming down the pipeline just from our team is the Language Access Joint Resolution that will be forthcoming the next 2 weeks as well. And then within the Human Rights Commission and Racial Equity and Policing Commissions, we're working on more plans to support equity in those spheres. So without further ado, if you have any questions, this is our team, and we can answer anything that you'd like to land in. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's nice to meet you guys. And I mean, I guess this is kind of in person now, but Thank you for coming. We're happy to post anything you guys need from us to our network, really whatever you guys need from us. And then if anybody has any questions, we'll do them in the chat. And we're gonna go over just a few minutes. I have Judy Short. Go ahead, Judy.
Hi, I'll try to make this brief. I know those of you that have been around for a while will understand the issues more clearly. And you probably know that I'm the land use chair for the Sugar House Community Council. And we have so many land use projects, it's ridiculous. So there's multiple issues of concern in a petition at 1583 Stratford in Sugar House. One is a lack of transparency in government. Another is the city's decision to reward property owners who break the rules. A third would be respecting the purpose statement in the ordinance and the adopted master plans. The application originally was for a rezone from RMF 35 to CN community neighborhood or commercial neighborhood. The planning staff report and both the Sugar House Community Council letter were both recommending denial. The Planning Commission actually did deny this. And it was to go to the City Council for review, but we didn't see it. After some 6 months, planning substituted a development agreement and changed its position after the Planning Commission sent the negative recommendation. Remember, the Planning Commission staff report and the report that went to the City Council were written by the same planner. One said no, the next one said yes. At the work session, 11 months after the Planning Commission hearing, there was no reference to the abundant public comment. I had pages and pages and pages of comments from the neighborhood, along with my letter. The description of the Planning Commission made its recommendation sound capricious. The City Council voted to send the application back to the Planning Commission, but failed to specify the public hearing should be opened. The planner's now saying the public hearing, which was based on a different proposal and a different recommendation from planning, has already occurred and there's no obligation to reopen the hearing. The city attorney is drafting a development agreement at the instruction of the planning staff for the Planning Commission to review. And to top it all off, Darren Mano declared a conflict of interest and recused himself. So we're asking for transparency, enforcement, and consistency with adopted ordinances and master plans. There's no benefit to the neighborhood in granting the property owner's request. Thank you. Cindy might want to say something about what
Sure.
are.
Cindy, do you want to chime in?
Yes, Judy's right. This is serious. Thanks.
That was blunt.
So pay attention to what your development, your petitions say. And make sure you get what you approved or didn't approve. And Weston, I hope you're listening carefully. Because we're going to go after the guys.
Hey, Judy, could you clarify what project this was, that this particular instance you're talking about?
Yeah, it's 1583 Stratford Avenue.
Now you guys understand why I'm so scared of Judy. Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, I think that this is shocking information.
Thank you.
I think transparency is something that we all want from government and from any entity. And I think we need some answers. Thank you.
Hey, Judy, Tim's asking if you'll send him a copy of the letter. And then Nigel's asking if there's 2 projects on Stratford.
No, other than this guy is threatening to buy up everything around and just build to his heart's content. He started off redeveloping the parcel without permits. And we couldn't get enforcement to really do anything. mean, the whole thing has just been a mess.
Anybody else have anything? Well, it's nice to meet the equity team, and thank you for everything. I guess we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Enjoy the games today.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Landon. Good meeting. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you.